When I ask people which Mario game is their favorite, I often hear Super Mario Galaxy due to their childhood. So many people have grown up with this game and have incredibly nostalgic memories of this Super Mario title. And I get why. It's a very good game and a classic for sure, an icon of the early 2000s. Well, that's what you would think at least, but it seems like this isn't 100% the case. According to the internet, somebody actually predicted that this game would be made all the way back in the early 90s. But is this even real? What did he say? How did he know that this would happen? And was Nintendo potentially inspired by this? Well, let's find out. Because believe me, this one is intriguing. Super Mario Galaxy, a title that revolutionized the platforming genre and put Nintendo back on the map. Before this, they struggled a lot with both the N64 and GameCube not doing well compared to the PlayStation. Really, they were in a dire situation with the handhelds being their saving grace. However, when they wanted to make a new console, they decided to make it unique, because if they would compete with PlayStation and Xbox, they would most likely lose. And so they made the iconic Wii, a very experimental console that certainly had its shortcomings, but it could do things that no other console could. Motion controls were a big focus, and quite quickly people fell in love with it. And so they had to make some solid titles for this device, with Super Mario and Zelda being a big focus. And so Super Mario Galaxy was born, a game with a heavy focus on space, gravity, and some motion controls here and there. And just like the console it was on, it was very experimental, which led to some amazing results. The game got incredibly high scores after all. Really, it was a massive success, which even led to a sequel that also sold very well. However, at some point, fans found something interesting. While most people never saw this game coming, there was one person, long ago, who actually predicted that this game would be made by Nintendo all the way back in the 90s. I know, it sounds crazy, but it's actually true. Let me explain. Back in the day, you had a magazine known as Nintendo Power, which was a video game news and strategy magazine from Nintendo of America, which was first published in 1988. They were filled with guides, interviews with developers, little sneak peeks for upcoming games, quizzes, and even little sections where readers could share their opinion. And in the 1991's December edition, also known as issue 31, they included a little segment known as Players. It was a section filled with answers sent in by readers after they were asked a question in one of the previous issues. Now at the top it said the following: "Oh sure, the Super NES is awesome, but..." A few issues back we asked you all to tell us what your ultimate game system would do. A lot of you wanted your dream systems to do chores and homework, while others wanted theirs to spit out cold hard cash. Here are some of the more interesting answers we received. Now below this were all kinds of answers that readers had sent in, but only one of these was incredibly interesting and actually predicted the future. It was from Jimmy Peterford, and the title was "If I Only Had 27 Fingers." And in it, he says the following: "My fantasy game system would be a complex 512-bit system. It could display 27,876,992 colors at one time, and could play any game from any video game system that ever was or will be. There would be a miniature band inside that knew how to play any song. You could even buy a special chip that would allow you to make your own games for it. What game would come with the system, you ask? Super Mario Galaxy, better known as Super Mario Bros. 24. This system would come with 6 27-button controllers and would cost $259.95. And I call it the Raw Power System." Now while this is clearly a very over-the-top answer that would never become reality, because I mean we don't have 27 fingers after all, there's one thing that did come true. Nintendo made Super Mario Galaxy around 16 years later, although it wasn't the 24th Super Mario title. I mean, we still haven't reached that number. But how did this person know? Did he actually predict this? Or was it just a wild guess and nothing else? And did Nintendo use this at all? Well, let's start with the first question. How did he know? Well, let's quickly look at the Super Mario landscape from the 90s to find out more. Back then, Nintendo was immensely popular, with both their handhelds and consoles doing incredibly well. And the most recent titles that they had released at this time were Super Mario World for the SNES and Super Mario Land for the Game Boy. But did we see any types of space themes in these titles that could have inspired this Nintendo Power Reader? Well, surprisingly enough, space themes have been seen in Super Mario for a long time. For example, in Super Mario World, you had the Star World, a secret 8th world that could be reached by finding one of the 5 hidden star roads. And while this world wasn't set in space or something, it did play around with space themes in a way, like the moon you can see or some of the space-themed backgrounds seen in level 3, 4, and 5. However, all of this was quite mild. Personally, I don't think this viewer got the idea of Super Mario Galaxy from Super Mario World. I think it's more likely that Super Mario Land inspired him, mostly due to the big villain of that game. Now, while the game takes place in a faraway land that has Middle Eastern and Asian themes, you use all kinds of advanced vehicles. Think of submarines, planes, and even after you beat the game, you will fly off with Daisy in some sort of rocket ship. Meanwhile, the big baddie, Tatanga, is an alien invader from an unknown planet. He captured Daisy, the princess of Sarasa Land, and orders his armies to guard the land's 4 kingdoms. Now, up until this point in time, he was the first alien villain to appear in the Mario franchise, and he is one of the only ones, really. So clearly, in this weird Game Boy spin-off, they experimented with some space themes and even included aliens. So while Super Mario Galaxy certainly wasn't a thing yet, I get where the idea came from. This reader most likely loved Super Mario Land and wanted some sort of sequel to it, with a heavy focus on characters like Tatanga, and everything found beyond the blue skies. So I bet this person didn't fully realize what he said, and while it did take a while before Super Mario Galaxy was a reality, he did get a dedicated space world in the sequel to Super Mario Land. In that title, you had the Space Zone, where you explored the moon in an astronaut suit, experienced low gravity for the first time, and fought Tatanga once again. However, could it be that this one, sent in reply, inspired Nintendo in any way when making Super Mario Galaxy? Well, maybe? In order to get an answer, we will have to quickly look into the development history of this Wii title. Obviously, Super Mario 64 played a role in all of this. It was the starting ground for the 3D Super Mario series as a whole, but it didn't really have any of the special mechanics that were seen in Super Mario Galaxy. Sure, the basics were there, but nothing else really. No planetoid system, no crazy gravity stuff, etc. So where did all of this start then? Some would say with the release of Galaxy, but even before that, they were messing around with it. Like I mentioned earlier, we saw some really big space themes in the sequel to Super Mario Land. I mean, the low gravity we saw in those levels give you a bit of a Super Mario Galaxy feel after all. However, that is 2D, and as you can imagine, that is a completely different beast compared to 3D. So when did it first appear in 3D? Well, I would say with a little demo known as Super Mario 128. This was a tech demo for the GameCube that Nintendo showed off in 2000 to prove how powerful the new console was. However, what's interesting is that we actually saw some of Super Mario Galaxy's DNA in it. As you can see, the characters were moving underneath the UFO-like platform, indicating that it was a planetoid-like structure with its own form of gravity. This is something that was heavily featured in the Galaxy games. Wacky gravity was the main thing, and it seems like Nintendo took the ideas of physics and sphere walking from this and used it in Super Mario Galaxy. Heck, they even talked about it internally during development when they were messing around with these systems. But this wasn't the only thing. This demo influenced many other titles as well. For example, Pikmin, which incorporated the idea of having many characters on screen at once, the physics technology was put in Metroid Prime, and sphere walking found its way into The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. So this demo was incredibly important, and interestingly, Koizumi, director of Super Mario Galaxy, directed this tech demo as well. So I would say that this demo is where the idea of Super Mario Galaxy really started, which does mean that our magical fortune teller from Nintendo Power couldn't have known that this game would ever be made. But as we have seen in this video, he had some leads to go on. But ultimately, it was just someone expressing a dream and it becoming reality years later. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little video. I came across this and I thought, you know what, it would be very interesting to cover this and how this person kind of predicted it, and then just look at like the Super Mario franchise at that time with its space themes, and then and a little bit of development history of Super Mario Galaxy and stuff. So let me know down below if you liked this video, if it was any good, or if I shouldn't do videos like this. I don't know. Just let me know. And if you want to, please leave a like, subscribe, click the bell button, do all the good stuff. It really helps me out. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. Yay! I love it so much that you watched my video, my interesting little video. Doei.